Stinky tofu or chow tofu is a fermented tofu that comes from Taiwan and South China. It was a traditional Chinese snack that usually sold at night market or on street. Stinky tofu gets its name from its unusual aroma which smells like a certain strong cheese. And it was fermented for at least 1 month in brine consists of fermented milk, vegetable, and meat. Traditionally, the stinky tofu dish is fermented in brine with vegetable and meat for 1 month, but modern factory-produced stinky tofu is marinated in brine for 1 or 2 days to add the odor. Stinky tofu doesn't have a fixed formula for a starter bacteria. Stinky tofu can be eaten cool, steamed, stewed, or most commonly deep-fried, and it can be eaten by chili sauce or soy sauce.
Process of manufacture the stinky tofu. Firstly, boil the tofu for a couple of minutes in salted water. Not only kills some bacteria, but it's helps the tofu drain more water. Place the tofu on several sheets of kitchen paper towel. Cover with more paper towels and place a weight on it to press and remove excess water. Leave the tofu about 1.5 hours and change the paper towel as needed if it becomes too wet. Third step, cut the tofu into 1-inch cube. Place them on a plate lined with kitchen paper towel. Then, place another piece of paper towel on top and cover the whole plate with plastic film.
For the fourth step, we need to let the tofu ferment for about 2 days at 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. This recipe works best in summer but can also be done during winter as long as there is a warm spot to ferment the tofu. After 2 to 3 days of fermentation, the tofu should be slightly orange and stinky with white mold appearance. If there's any black or blue mold, you can just scrape it off. If the tofu is not stinky enough when placed into the brine, the chow will end up with mild taste.
7th step. Use brine to prevent the tofu from going bad. The tofu contains some natural cultures and molds that will work during the fermentation process. Brine consists of boiled water mixed with salt, sugar, and rice wine or vodka. Brine is the crucial element in making fermented tofu because it determines the flavor of the final product. The tofu cubes are soaked in the brine to absorb the flavors. Next, place the tofu cubes in glass jar and cover with the brine. Glass is used because it is non-porous and impermeable, so there are no interactions between glass packaging and products to affect the flavor of tofu. No nasty aftertaste ever. Glass has an almost zero rate of chemical interaction, ensuring that the products inside a glass bottle keep their strength, aroma, and flavors. 8th step. Dip each tofu cubes in chili flakes. It makes the chow more flavorful and gives it an appealing orange color. The tofu dips in chili flakes, which not only make it hot and spicy, but also delicious. It produces the full flavor that you need as an additive to most of your meals. This is the result after a long period of fermentation. Last step. Once the jars are full, secure with a lid and place them in a dark place at around 68 Fahrenheit or 20 degrees Celsius for at least 3 weeks. The longer the tofu ages, the stronger and softer it becomes.
Mechanisms occur in the process of making stinky tofu are alkaline fermentation and natural fermentation. Alkaline fermentation. Stinky tofu is considered to be alkaline fermentation even though lactic acid is produced because the end of product contains ammonia. In the beginning of the fermentation, the pH of the stinky brine will decrease to around 4.7 because more lactic acid is being produced, corresponding to an increase in the number of the lactic acid bacteria. During this period, lactic acid bacteria are the dominant bacteria in the solution. However, as the fermentation proceeds, microorganisms such as bacillus species will dominate and secrete extracellular microbial protease. This protease will hydrolyze protein to form amino acids and peptides during the fermentation process. This causes the release of ammonia, increasing the pH of the final products to around 8 to 9. The stinky odor of stinky tofu comes from the ammonia release.
Let's take a look at the mechanism of alkaline fermentation first. In alkaline fermentation, the protein of the dried soybeans are broken down into amino acids and peptides. For amino acids, it will be degraded to ammonia. Then ammonia is released during the fermentation. Next, saturation of water with ammonia gas from ammonium hydroxide. This causes an increase in the pH of the final product, which is stinky tofu, and gives it a strong ammoniacal smell. Apart from alkaline fermentation, stinky tofu is also one of the foods from the natural fermentation process. So, this is the natural fermentation mechanism in stinky tofu processing. First of all, there are no production standards or standardized starter cultures for producing stinky tofu. The microorganisms used to ferment the stinky tofu usually originate from the original raw ingredients, which are dried soybeans. It comes from the natural environment and are inoculated by chance. Next, each batch of stinky tofu varies, causing an inconsistency in the quality and taste of each batch. For addition, this type of fermentation for stinky tofu can take up to 6 months to allow insect infestation and fungal growth.